What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I am Alex, and I am joined by an incredibly special guest. We have VGFightSchool here, an incredible creator, and a guy that does really God's work in terms of the Gotham Knights community. An amazing guy. I've done a video actually on his channel before. We did it a few weeks back, so if you guys want to check that out or just subscribe to his channel, I'll leave a link to it in the description. So before we go into the topics of this video, kind of where we're at with Gotham Knights, thank you, by the way, for being here.
Appreciate it, Alex. Thank you so much for the opportunity to come and talk about Gotham Knights, and thanks for the kind words.
Of course. Well, like I said, I mean, the amount of content that you crank out there, and the honestly, the really good work that you do is incredible. And I know we've talked for a very long time, even behind the scenes, and it's great that we actually, get this going. So, we get to have this talk, around 3 weeks before Gotham Knights comes out. So we'll talk about, the main thing I want to do in this video is talk about the side villains and go through kind of some final predictions for it. But where are you feeling? How's your feel of Gotham Knights, sitting just 3 weeks away from this game actually, releasing to us?
The honest truth is right now I'm feeling way much better about the game in terms of my interest. So I came in after they first showed it in DC Fandom event somewhere around the 20-25% mark, because I saw it and I was like, this was not what I was looking forward to. Where's Bruce Wayne? What is this talk of him being dead? Where are the Arkham games? Because that 20-minute gameplay that I said 20 minutes, sorry, the 7-minute gameplay narrative was also real gameplay. And so seeing the way the gameplay actually was, I took my time to break it down, and so I was around 25%. But over the the years, and I started to move up a little bit in terms of where I was. But what really pushed it over that 80% into the 90%, I would say acceptance rate for me was the PC trailer yesterday. That kind of sealed the deal, because visuals in a game really do have a place. And I think if we're gonna see that quality, I'm just sold in terms of the entire project. There'll be things I probably would have issues with, but I think that just yesterday alone, my hype went up by 10%.
The PC trailer was pretty cool. We got the little Easter egg of Superboy in there too, and it's something that people have been, I know I saw you on Twitter too. Like, we've been asking for PC specs and just kind of more information there specifically, for a long time. Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I'm ready to go. I'm excited. I tend to get really hyped up for games, any game, right before it comes out. But for Gotham Knights, obviously, for how long, we've been at this and how long we've covered it, it's honestly, it really is surreal to see that it's actually coming out, and kind of odd that, like, when it's out, like, you do all the post kind of coverage for the game, and then it's over, and then it's like then you kind of move on and you do other stuff, and just very, very crazy. So what I want to do here is talk about the side villains. I know we've probably both individually talked about side villains quite a few times, but I want to kind of go through final predictions. How many do you think? So we have the three, right? We have the three confirmed. Penguin I don't count because I just don't know what they're going to necessarily do with him. And then Court of Owls I don't count, obviously, because they're main villains. So we have, obviously, Harley, Clayface, and Mr. Freeze. So let me ask you, I'll just throw it to you to get it started. How many side villains, I guess including those three, do you think they'll be in the game in all? And what do you think is the right number? I tried to ask this on Twitter, and it seems kind of like 8 to 10 is what people really want. I think it's going to be less, and I'm not thrilled with that, but that's kind of where I'm at. But what do you think about all that?
I guess it depends on the scope of the game, number one, and it also depends on the longevity of the game. So these are two things that we must kind of take into consideration as well, because if that 8 number is something that people are citing, then we're probably looking at a place where, okay, in today's day and age, because it's a different time from when Arkham Origins was made and even Arkham Knight, 8 is probably for a game that has a closed loop, a game that you beat from, once you start the game, you then beat it, and that's the end of the game. If you want to do anything more, you got to start another game again and then play the game all over again and do the exact same thing. So games like Arkham Origins, Arkham City, Arkham Knight, they could actually get away with that in that time frame. A game like Gotham Knights, nonetheless, seems to have more of an open-ended arrangement where there could be DLC. And so whatever number they start with, I think we can kind of take it that there will probably be more DLC characters and villains that are tacked on and extensions of the world. because even I don't know if you remember that interview that Jeff Eleanor did, where the guy asked him, I think it was on a Spanish YouTube channel or something like that, and he asked him and he said, can we expect to see anything further? Can you give me a nod or a wink or whatever? And Jeff Eleanor didn't say anything. He just smiled and said, there are things that we'd like to share, but we're waiting for time to go on. So that was the closest hint that we have that probably more villains and heroes might be surfacing in the game. Yeah. So if you're asking, say, where we want to start from, I think anywhere from 8 to 10 is quite fair if they're going to do DLC and bring more villains and more heroes. Now, if they're not going to bring more heroes and villains in DLC, I think that's where you have a point that number is actually quite small. So I guess I left my answer open-ended too, because I would like to be able to play that 30 hour experience, the first one with one character, second character, third character, and so on and so forth, and experience it with the available list that they do have.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking if I was to just go with that number, I think about a dozen is fine for me. I think a dozen makes a good number.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like, I'll be honest, as time has gone on, I've lowered my expectations, because I am starting to get worried just because of what they've done with and I've liked what they did. And the villains trailer, I think, is a really one of the best trailers they've ever done for Gotham Knights. I like their picks so far. You got a little bit of familiar faces. You got some like a Clayface, where that's obviously they've done it, or it's been in the Arkham games, let's say, but it's still kind of an oddball, I would say, in a good way, to be in Gotham Knights. But they've only shown those 3, and then you have Penguin kind of as this like not like inside agent, but somebody's going to kind of walk you through the game or whatever. And I do start to get worried that it's going to be like 6, that there'll be like 6 in all. And I'm completely in agreement with you that there will be DLC, and that DLC will have villains. I could imagine a like 2-in-1 thing where you do a big DLC, like pretty sizable. You have 2 villain quest lines, so that's a couple hours each, and then you have a new playable character. I don't think there'll be as many playable characters added as villains, because I think you do villain DLCs actually way easier than creating a character you have to play as.
Exactly.
Yeah, but it is tough, because it doesn't matter if the game comes out. It doesn't matter if there's DLC, I should say. If the game comes out and it feels like there's when you have all these live service games, or paying for these DLCs, you do want the base game to be full, because if the base game is not full, you're gonna have problems there. So I would hope. At this point, I guess 7. I think that was like my prediction, and that's still pretty low. Like, to me, that's on the lower end. 6 or 7 would be borderline. I'm getting upset at it. It's like right on that line. And if it's 8, I'd say 8 is where I'd be like, all right, I'm completely cool if you got 8 villains. But I guess what worries me is just the amount they've shown. And I get it. You don't want to show everything for sure, but it just seems like if there was, say, and I use this argument, if there were, say, 9 to 10 side villains in this game, I feel like they would have announced more than 3. Does that make sense? Like, I feel like 4 or even 5, I feel like they already would have announced, and then left the other half. I guess I'm kind of playing it by like the numbers. So I'm guessing because they've announced 3, maybe that's half of them. They don't want to reveal the other half. So if they announced 4, then I would start to think, 8, 9, 10. That's kind of where I'm at. But I'll let you respond to that. But then in terms of, if you want to talk about, are you happy with the villains they've picked? Like, where are you on villains they have and villains they could have?
Okay, well, that's a really solid question. And before I jump into that answer, I wanted us to just also consider something, because I think, as you were talking, I started to get a little bit more jittery, because I think you might be more right than you actually, even perceive. Now, the reason I say that is because, first of all, you're saying maybe they show 3 because they're probably only 6, and Penguin might be somebody who has a dynamic written to him.
Right.
And the reason that 6 number of yours sounds even more realistic is because they've had to do the game 4 different times with all 4 of our main protagonists to experience their story. So all that by itself would have eaten and taken more development and narrative time that you would expect that to be realistic. Now, if they did anything more than that 6, it will probably be impressive within the means. And that's the thing you said, every DLC would have to be which I'm sure they've already started doing DLC last year, by the way.
Yeah.
That's how they usually do it. I'm sure every DLC would need to feature each and every of the character, do a voice line for it or voiceover or do some animation or some voice acting. That would mean all of them doing their voiceovers again, which yes, they can do from home if they have a home studio. Most voice actors these days, they have a box at home where they can go in there and record voice lines. So that's where the complexity of the game actually is on in regard to all of that. And so when it goes down to the question of saying, okay, am I happy with the villains that were chosen? Honestly, I think the list so far leaves a lot to be desired for one thing. They haven't shown me the League of Assassins yet. We haven't seen them yet.
Yeah.
And they're in this game. And so that's where I think, okay, are we going to get a sense of them? Are we going to see who they are? We're going to see their enemy types. Who knows? That could provide a very strong basis for the main villain groups, because we have the Court of Owls, we have the League of Assassins, and so there could be other villain groups that are in that list of 6 major villain groups. I don't know if you know, well, on their website,
yeah,
they have all those 6 whatevers, and they've only unlocked only 1.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that could be that, each villain group will probably have a place to be in that, little
now, do you
emblem
qualify
thing
that as main villains?
Yeah, I think, yeah, main villains or whatever. Maybe it would then, have a story dynamic that siphones down to, the side characters. And so I don't know what the main villains are like. So even if I wouldn't want to judge the game based on all of the side villains that I've seen.
Right.
And I think that's where I'm a little hesitant in terms of that. But ideally, overall, I don't know, Mr. Freeze. Yeah, I don't know, man. He's everywhere. Everybody likes him. Maybe it's because it's easy to develop.
Yeah.
Maybe because its story is not too complex. Maybe that's one of the reasons. But it could be all kinds of other factors as well. But again, I just said that because I think it leaves a lot to be desired because I haven't seen much. I like the Court of Owls. If the League of Assassins are there, I like them. With the side assassins, with the side villains. So far, the only one I'm digging is Clayface, like you are.
Yeah.
Harley being a side villain herself, I'm still a little iffy with that. I don't really know I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah.
Honestly. Penguin, if they want to write Penguin, they need to make him a backstabbing maniac. He leads them into this lair with the Court of Owls, and then when they make it out, they find out, oh, Penguin, you set us up. And then now it's an entire villain structure with the Penguin.
Yeah.
That could work.
Yep.
For that, but everything's so up in the air, and they're guarding their story so preciously.
Yeah.
Because I feel like they have so many surprises in that game, and they just don't want anything to come out. So that's where we are.
And those are good points. I think on the flip side too, and I think, say, like the main story, and people have brought this up, with like an Arkham City kind of game, or even Arkham Knight, I guess, where if you can organically throw several villains into the main story, that could help, people that are upset about the specific side villain, arc. So if they only have, the 3 that they've done, if Penguin... and Penguin could count, so maybe that could be 4. And if they gave us like 2 to 3 more, right? You had 6 or 7 if you count Penguin or not. And if that was it in general, then like the Court of Owls are your main villain, and that was it. That's a pretty disappointing, roster. But no matter who those other, 3 side villains are. But if you could introduce, like you said, and I'm sure we will, right? If you could introduce some of these factions that are going to have leaders that are injected straight into the main story, which is, Penguin, Two-Face, etc., Mr. Freeze, they did all that in Arkham City. If you can do that, well, then that is not really, say, 6 side villains and just the Court of Owls. Now you have 6 side villains, Court of Owls, and then maybe like 4 others. So now you are up to 10, 11, 12. There's an easy way of getting there. So if that happened, I wouldn't be all that upset. The problem, like you said, they're being very, secretive, which in my opinion probably does tell me there are some cool villains that are injected in, or some things that just would give away huge spoilers if you showed it, or if you jump too far in the game, right, and you show that, maybe that gives something away. So thinking about it like that does make me feel better personally. And I guess, we just have 3 weeks to wait on that.
There was something that actually came out a while ago, but I didn't follow the lead. Somebody on Twitter did a really long thread where they took almost all the clues that we had from the game and pieced pretty much how they thought the plot was going to unfold.
Oh, wow.
And it was one of the most convincing things I'd ever seen, and it was done on Twitter. And I remember commenting on it and just, I think I retweeted or I quoted it. and it really got a lot of traction. In fact, it was such a lot of information. I was like, man, this is gonna take like 10 videos to break down without having to, I don't think they would have minded if I had asked and said, hey, can I share this with the community? I think they would have been, ecstatic with that. But I just looked at the workload and I was like, and also it may inadvertently spoil something for somebody who may not want to deal with spoilers.
Right.
And so I was like, I guess I'm just probably gonna steer clear in making this thread seem a lot bigger than it is, because it wasn't from any leaked information. It was just purely everything from that newspaper that we got with the newspaper picture that we got, all of the different trailers and previews and statements that were made by characters within the game. And just that alone has already had people form all kinds of different aspects of the game. But I think the surprises will probably be the best part. And yes, the gameplay may have its issues, or for some people or whatever it is, they may have their concerns or whatever it is. But I think the devs realize that their narrative is somewhat strong. And if that's the case, then they're going to guard. I'm shocked that they even revealed this much if they're banking on their narrative, because they seem to take the narrative director everywhere. And LeMay, she's always in interviews and all that stuff. So you can usually tell that a narrative for a game, is a very good part of it, very huge part of it, when the narrative designers, that's what the narrative directors are, in front of the cameras making statements. You can look at, say, maybe some other games where the development starts out with mechanics, or starts out with gameplay, or the open world, or all these other things, and then you don't really hear much about a narrative. That's how you know a game doesn't have too much of a narrative in it, because it's not heavily banking on that. But I think Gotham Knights has a narrative to it too. And so we're going to be frustrated until we hit play on that first day of release of this game.
Absolutely. Well, we're getting close, and it continues to get more exciting. And we obviously want to hear from you guys in the comments. So let us know how many side villains you think will be added. What do you think they do with the main missions? Make sure, again, I'll leave the link in the description as well as a comment. Make sure you guys are subscribed to VG Fight School. An incredible guy, truly a nice guy as well. And he cranks those Gotham Knights videos out like nobody's business. I truly appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for being on the channel.
Hey, thanks for having me, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Anytime. Well, thank you guys, as always, for watching. We only got a couple weeks left, or I guess a few weeks left, and we will see you all on the next video.